1st, 1994, Imola, Italy. The San Marino Grand Prix should have been just another race, but instead, it became the darkest weekend in Formula One history. In the space of just 3 days, fans watched the sport unravel. Rubens Barrichello's horror crash, Roland Ratzenberger's fatal impact, and Ayrton Senna, the greatest driver of his generation, climbing into a car for the very last time. This wasn't just a race, it was a nightmare playing out in real time. Millions around the world watched live as Formula One was exposed for what it really was back then. Fast, technical, and unforgiving. A sport where even the smallest mistake could mean death. And at the center of it all was Senna, a man torn between his duty to race and his fear that he wouldn't survive. What happened that weekend changed Formula One forever. And even now, 30 years later, the scars remain. By 1994, Ayrton Senna was already a legend. 3 world titles, a hero to millions. But he wasn't done. He wanted one more championship. That's why he left McLaren for Williams. On paper, they had the fastest car. But after the FIA stripped away the electronic aids that kept it stable, the Williams became unpredictable. Fast, technical, and unforgiving. Senna warned everyone. He said this season would be filled with accidents, and he was right. After 2 races, Michael Schumacher had 2 wins. Senna, no points. By the time Formula One arrived at Imola, the pressure was crushing him. But what happened next went far beyond a championship battle. Imola weekend didn't just start badly, it started violently. On Friday, Rubens Barrichello, one of Senna's closest friends, lost control at over 220 kilometers per hour. His car hit the barriers, launched into the air, and came down hard. The impact knocked him out cold. Medical crews rushed in. Barrichello wasn't breathing. He had swallowed his tongue. For a few terrifying minutes, it looked like his career, maybe even his life, was over. Senna was devastated. He sprinted to the medical center. This wasn't just another driver. Rubens was like family. Senna had helped fund his karting career when he was a kid, and now he was lying there, broken. Thankfully, Barrichello survived with only a broken nose and arm injuries. But for Senna, the damage was deeper. He saw firsthand how dangerous the Williams and the new regulations had made Formula One. And as the paddock breathed a sigh of relief, the nightmare was only beginning. The very next day, on the same weekend, at the same track, tragedy struck again. Roland Ratzenberger, a rookie in only his 2nd Formula One race, was pushing hard in qualifying. But after running over a curb, his front wing cracked. At 314 kilometers per hour, it finally snapped. His Simtek turned into a missile. No steering, no control. He went straight into a concrete wall at full speed. The silence after impact told the story. Ratzenberger didn't move. He never would again. Senna was distraught. He even drove down to the crash site himself, ignoring protocol, desperate to know what had happened. Race officials weren't honest with him. Under Italian law, if a driver was confirmed dead, the Grand Prix had to be stopped. Instead, they delayed the announcement, protecting sponsors and TV contracts, not the drivers. Think about that. Same track, same cursed weekend. One friend barely survives, another dies instantly, and yet Formula One still expected Senna to strap in and race. Sunday, May 1st, 1994. The drivers lined up for the San Marino Grand Prix, but nobody could ignore the shadow hanging over the paddock. 2 brutal crashes in 2 days. One driver barely survived, another killed on the same track. It didn't feel like a race weekend, it felt like Russian roulette. Senna showed up carrying an Austrian flag in his cockpit, a quiet promise to honor Roland Ratzenberger if he made it to the finish. But the weight on his shoulders was crushing. He had spoken openly about safety before, warning that the new regulations would cause more accidents. Now, his worst fears were already coming true. During the pre-race briefing, Senna pushed hard for the drivers to reform their association and demand better safety standards. Even in those tense moments, with his own doubts looming, he was thinking of everyone else. Still, when the time came, he walked out to the grid, climbed into his Williams, and settled into pole position. But make no mistake, this wasn't just another race for Ayrton Senna. It felt more like a fight against fate itself. When the lights went out, the chaos started instantly. JJ Lehto's Benetton stalled on the grid, turning him into a sitting target. Behind him, Pedro Lamy had no time to react. He slammed straight into the back at full speed. The crash scattered debris across the main straight. Wheels and bodywork flew like shrapnel. 8 fans in the grandstands and even a trackside police officer were injured before the race had barely begun. The safety car was deployed. Only the second time in Formula One history it had been used in dry conditions. But there was a problem. The safety car was too slow. Senna immediately started waving, gesturing for the driver to pick up the pace. He knew what was happening. His tires were cooling, his car was losing grip, and every lap behind that slow car was turning into a death trap. By lap 5, the safety car finally pulled in. The race was back on, Senna and Schumacher at the front, 2 gladiators ready to go wheel to wheel. But as the green flag waved, everyone watching could sense it. This wasn't just another restart. It felt like the entire weekend was building to something awful. When the safety car finally peeled off on lap 5, the tension hit its peak. At the front, 2 titans of the sport stared each other down. Ayrton Senna, already a 3-time world champion, the master of qualifying, the fearless genius, and Michael Schumacher, the ruthless young challenger, already leading the championship with back-to-back wins. This was supposed to be the duel of a generation, Senna versus Schumacher, experience versus youth. But something wasn't right. The Williams FW16, the car Senna had trusted to bring him a 4th title, was nervous, unstable. It twitched through every corner, like it was trying to throw him out. Senna had complained all weekend about its handling, about how the FIA's rule changes banning electronic driver aids had stripped away the stability the car was designed for. He wasn't just worried about performance, he feared it was dangerous. And still, he pushed, because that's who Senna was. He wasn't going to roll over, not to Schumacher, not to anyone. Lap 6. Senna blasted down the long Imola straight, Schumacher in his mirrors, over 300 kilometers per hour. The crowd rose as he approached Tamburello, a corner he'd taken flat out countless times before. But this time, it all went wrong. In a fraction of a second, Senna's car veered violently to the right. No correction, no chance to save it. The Williams speared off the track and smashed into the unprotected concrete wall at over 200 kilometers per hour. The force was brutal. The suspension shattered, the front wheel snapped back, and debris flew across the circuit. Senna's car bounced back onto the tarmac, crumpled and lifeless. For a moment, silence. Even Murray Walker, the voice of Formula One, was speechless. His iconic commentary stuttered out,
"What on earth happened there? I don't know."
The cameras showed the wreck. Senna's helmet slumped to the side. He wasn't moving. The world's greatest driver, motionless in the cockpit. Spectators in the stands went from cheering to shock. Mechanics in the garages froze. And the drivers still on track knew, without anyone saying a word, this was no ordinary crash. The battle with Schumacher was over. Formula One had just witnessed its darkest moment. The moment Senna's Williams hit the wall, the track fell into silence. Marshals sprinted to the scene, waving frantically for help. This wasn't just another crash, everyone knew it instantly. Professor Sid Watkins, Formula One's head doctor and one of Senna's closest friends, arrived within seconds. What he saw was grim. A suspension arm had pierced Senna's helmet, causing catastrophic injuries. Yet there was still a faint pulse, a tiny flicker of hope. The medical team worked desperately right there on the tarmac as the race unbelievably continued around them. Engines screamed past while one of the greatest drivers in history lay fighting for his life. Then, in a surreal moment, another car appeared, Eric Comas. He came flying into the crash scene, nearly colliding with the rescue crew. The irony was cruel. Just 2 years earlier, it was Senna who had saved Comas after a terrifying crash. Now Comas was powerless to return the favor. Finally, Senna was airlifted from the circuit. The helicopter lifted off slowly, his body strapped down, visor bloodied, oxygen mask in place. Journalists standing nearby saw drops of blood falling from the aircraft. For millions watching, it was clear this wasn't just a racing accident, something far worse had happened. Hours later, the world received the news it had feared. Ayrton Senna was gone. On lap 7 of the San Marino Grand Prix, one of the greatest drivers in history had taken his final breath. The announcement sent shockwaves far beyond Formula One. In Brazil, millions poured into the streets. The government declared 3 days of national mourning. His funeral drew crowds larger than most world leaders ever would. For Brazilians, Senna wasn't just a driver. He was hope, pride, and identity. Back in Europe, the investigation began immediately. Italian police seized Senna's destroyed Williams as evidence. Inside the cockpit, they found something haunting: an Austrian flag. Senna had planned to wave it at the finish line in honor of Roland Ratzenberger, the rookie who had lost his life just 24 hours earlier. That single detail said everything about who Senna was. Even at the peak of his own pressure, he thought first about others. Formula One could never be the same after Imola. The deaths of Ratzenberger and Senna forced the FIA into action. Circuits were redesigned, walls were pushed back, safety standards rewritten. Modern Formula One, the halo, the stronger cockpits, the medical response, all of it was born from this tragedy. It was a brutal reminder of the risks every driver accepts when they step into the cockpit. Motorsport is fast, technical, and unforgiving, and when it goes wrong, the consequences are devastating. Ayrton Senna's death was the darkest moment in Formula One history, but it also ensured that no driver, rookie or champion, would ever face the same risks again. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more F1 stories.